BBC News. Sergey Viktorovich, Europe continues to discuss the idea of sending peacekeepers to Ukraine. Please tell me, is Moscow still opposed to this, or is there still room for compromise in the course of the peace process? We don't see any room for compromise. This discussion is being conducted with a frankly hostile purpose. They do not hide why they need it. Macron, in particular, with the support of Stamer, they, in my opinion, will soon take Zelensky to bow to Washington. But Macron and Stamer, as they describe their plan, need to suspend military operations for a month, at least in the air, at sea, and in relation to energy facilities. And during this month, we will deploy these troops in parallel with the agreement of the terms of peace. But if you have brought troops into the territory, then you probably won't want to agree on any conditions, because you are creating facts on the ground. Secondly, when these topics were touched upon, for example, the Trump administration commented on the question, answering a question from journalists, commented on this situation in such a way that such things, especially if they are trying to be called peacekeeping forces, should be discussed and be subject to the consent of the parties, which neither Macron, nor Stamer, nor other supporters of the entry of troops, they don't even mention Ukraine. We will consider the presence of these troops on Ukrainian territory, in the same way as we considered the potential presence of NATO in Ukraine. Because no matter what flags this operation is covered with, the European Union national flags of the countries that supply contingents, no matter what chevrons are pasted on the sleeves of uniforms, they will still be NATO troops of NATO countries. Although the Irish are already there, in my opinion, even for some reason expressed their readiness to send their contingent. They do not like it outside the North Atlantic Alliance. Canada, of course, where without it, Australia. So the company is going to be interesting. We will categorically not observe such actions. It will mean, I want to say again, not allegedly hybrid, but already direct official involvement, undisguised involvement of NATO countries in the war against the Russian Federation.
Уже прямое вовлечение, официальное вовлечение, нескрываемое вовлечение стран НАТО в войну против Российской Федерации.
This cannot be allowed to happen, and especially against the background of Macron's nervous statement yesterday that Russia and Europe. It's a threat. So, if this is a threat, then the troops should be directed against this threat. And the last thing I want to say in this regard. From the very beginning of this situation, a special military operation, even when there were negotiations in Belarus in the 22nd year, then in Istanbul we practically agreed, signed, initialed a document that Boris Johnson later forbade us to carry out, and Zelensky obediently agreed. And so far, we are always told, Macron says, it is impossible for negotiations to go on without Ukraine. That Russia and the United States will agree on something there. Ukraine will be on the sidelines, and Europe will be in the country. Nothing can be done without Ukraine and Europe. Not a word about Ukraine without Ukraine. But all this time, these various forums, which the West actively promoted, organized to discuss either Zelensky's formula for peace or the formula for victory. Now he has come up with some new initiative under a new name. They were, in fact, discussing Russia without Russia. This is such a colonial, neo-colonial thinking.
Колониальное, неоколониальное мышление.
Simply put, this is rudeness, which they consider to be a normal way of behavior for
Они
themselves.
считают для себя нормальным образом поведения.
That is, without Ukraine, not a word, but without Russia.
Без России
For
дороги
God's
нет.
sake.
Они
They are
живут
now
сейчас
bragging
хвалятся
from
Stamer
Stamer and
и
Macron
Macron, что
that they
они
are now
сейчас
making
что-то
something
там
there on
слепят
paper.
на бумаге.
They will explain to Zelensky that he should accept it, and then they will go to Trump to approve it.
А потом
And all
поедут
this
к
will then
Трампу,
be presented to
чтобы тот
Putin.
одобрил, и все это будет потом предъявлено Путину.
How is it from the point of view of diplomatic etiquette? I understand that etiquette did this conditionally and has long been in real diplomacy.
И давно уже в реальной дипломатии.
Even here it's not etiquette, I'll say, but decency. Decency with the West has long been violated, so there is nothing surprising in this. But I hear sensible voices, including inside NATO, inside the European Union, who understand that Macron, in order to save his reputation, hopelessly trampled on inside France, can go to completely thoughtless actions.
Безнадежно растоптанную внутри Франции, может пойти на совершенно бездумные поступки.